You're probably doing more sets than you need and you're still not happy with your results. A lot of people in the gym either undertrain or bury yourself with more volume than your body actually needs and then wonder why your body doesn't change. In this video, I'm going to show you how many sets you actually need to build proper muscle without spending your entire life in the gym. And if you want the exact structure that I use with my clients to get the results that you see on my Instagram page, then hit the first link in the description box. There'll be a link to a free training. Just put your email in there. I'll send it straight over. It'll break down step by step how to build muscle whilst losing body fat at the same time in the easiest and simplest way possible. Now you've had your free stuff, let's get back to the video. So here's where most people go wrong. They think more is better when it comes to the gym. More exercises, more time in the gym. Your muscle doesn't grow from doing more. It grows from doing enough, but to a high quality standard. There's a big difference between volume and effective volume. Junk volume looks good on paper, but isn't really challenging enough to build any proper muscle. If you finish a set, you get off the machine and you knew you could have done a hell of a lot more, you are leaving so much progress on the table, it is unreal. A working set, which you all need to be doing, is where a particular exercise is pushed to complete failure or around 1 to 2 sets away from failure. Yes, it's going to be a struggle. Yes, you're probably going to be shaking like a shitting dog, but that form still needs to be pretty much perfect. That's where your majority of your growth is going to happen. Some people will say you don't really need to push your exercises close to failure. In my opinion, everybody should be trying to work towards complete failure, because if you're honest with yourself, you usually, even if you're pushing to that failure point, you've probably realistically got 1 or 2 reps left in the tank anyway. So if I'm going to tell a client to leave 2 or 3 reps in the tank, it's probably actually more like 4 or 5. So I'm setting the standard up here to work to complete failure. And like I said, you're probably going to be leaving a little bit left in the tank anyway. For most people, around 6 to 10 sets per muscle group per week is enough to build good quality muscle. After that, you hit diminishing returns, more effort with not real any additional benefit. And on that point, rest times are so much more important than people think. Not a lot of people like to take too much rest because they feel like they're being slack in the gym, right? But if you're pushing to almost complete failure on every single exercise, you need to allow yourself enough recovery time in between them sets to make sure that every time you jump back on that machine, you can give your absolute all and work to failure. If you're not resting enough and you're jumping back in too soon, you are cutting your progress short, and that is going to have a hindrance on your progress within that session, but also within that week. Yeah, with some of your smaller movements like your biceps, your triceps and stuff like that, you don't really need too big of a rest time because they're small muscles. It doesn't take that long for you to recover. But when it comes to your bigger compound movements, like your bench press, your squats, if you're doing deadlifts, stuff like that, that is taxing on the muscle, but it's also taxing from a cardiovascular standpoint. So it's going to take a while for your heart rate to die down, for you to feel properly recovered to then jump back into that next set. But with that said, I know a lot of people watching this are going to be short on time. And I said at the start of the video, I don't want you spending your whole life in the gym. So if you are somebody like that, one thing to counteract that and make sure that yes, you're giving your body adequate recovery in between each set, but you're also getting in there, getting the work done, and getting out as quickly as possible, superset some of your exercises. But just on that point, when I say that, so for clarity, a superset is where you do an exercise back to back with no rest in between. When people mess this up is, say they're doing chest, they may do an incline press, superset with a fly, right? That is, don't do that. It's awful. When you are supersetting, you want to make sure that you're supersetting with a different muscle group. So let's say you're training upper. If you're working your chest and your back within that session, you could do, for example, an incline bench press, superset with a barbell row. While your chest is working, your back is resting, and while then your back is working, your chest is resting. So you're supersetting, it's going to save you a lot of time, but you're also getting enough recovery between each exercise. And again, if you want that exact structure that I use for my clients, click the first link in the description box, fill in your details, and I'll send it right over to your email. Across the week, hitting a muscle group twice usually works a lot better than smashing it once. The muscle building signal doesn't last all week. After a couple of days, it drops off. So if you have the time within your week, I would be hitting everything twice, apart from legs. Trust me, if you train legs hard enough, once a week is going to be more than enough. But with this said, it doesn't mean train every single day. I'm not saying that. I have clients come on board with me at times and they want to train every single day because they think that's going to get them close to the goal. Like I said earlier in the video, you need to give your body enough time to recover within the sessions, but also outside of the sessions. I cannot stress this enough. Remember, all you're doing in the gym is stimulating the muscle, breaking it down. It is not growing in the gym. That is just one part of the process. When you're outside of the gym through proper nutrition, proper sleep, and proper recovery, that is where your muscle is going to recover and grow back stronger. So if you're wanting to train every single day, you're not giving your body enough time to recover in between them sessions. So yes, you think you're going to get better progress and quicker progress because you're doing more work, but you're actually having the opposite effect because you're not leaving enough time to recover between each session. But this advice needs to be specific to a certain individual. Some people, depending on how long you've been training, will be able to handle more volume than others. You need to run it for a couple of weeks and see what your limit is, see what your capacity is, and then if it's right, if it's too much, you need to pull back a little bit for the following week. If you feel recovered in between each session, you know you can ramp up that frequency slightly. You'll find your sweet spot by tracking your progress week on week and your nutrition and your recovery outside of the gym. If you're progressing on lower volume, stay there. You want to get as much progress out of the smallest amount of work, because when plateaus come, because they always will, I always use the analogy of you want to have more tools in the toolbox left to utilize to push past that plateau when it does come. If you throw everything that you've got at this process straight off the bat, when a plateau comes, you've got nothing left to use. You've got no more bandwidth, no more time within the week. So then it's like the plateau comes and you don't know what to do. Don't add more volume for the sake of it. Like I said, if you're just adding more and more and more, a lot of the time it actually has a negative impact. A small strategy is focusing on specific muscles within certain phases. For example, push legs hard for a certain phase whilst everything else is ticking over nicely. Then rotate. That way, you're not trying to max out everything all the time and burning yourself out. The perfect number of sets doesn't really matter if you do it consistently. For me personally and for my clients, I always go between 2 and 3 sets per exercise per session. You just need to make sure that what you set yourself is manageable at that specific point. You can be consistent with it short term, but also long term. And then when you know and you feel like you can add more volume to your specific week, then do so, but just make sure you've built that consistency first, because you don't want to add more volume and then that causes you to drop off. There's no point in doing 5 or 6 sessions per week if you can only be consistent with that 1 week out of the whole entire month. But with all that said, here's the problem. Knowing how many sets to do or how much to focus on certain areas, on certain phases and certain particular weeks won't help if your workouts are random and there's not really any structure in place. That's the exact reason why most people train for years, don't see the progress that they think they deserve. So watch this video here where I break down step by step how to structure your training week on week so it actually moves the needle forward and you start seeing the results from all that hard work. Because the only way all this advice works is if the plan that you're following actually makes sense. That's your lot. Thanks for coming. Peace.